Welcome everyone to today's webinar. Today we're going to be talking about creating constituent lists from a map in Tableau. This webinar is being recorded today, so I'll make a link available and send it out to you afterwards. And we'll also be posting it on our YouTube channel, so you can just go there and see this webinar as well as previous webinars. In GoToWebinar, you have this control panel that you're going to want to minimize so that you can see what's going on today. So before you do that, go ahead and pop out the question section there. There's just a little button with an arrow on it that's in that section that you can click on. That'll pop that out and then collapse the rest of the control panel. That way you can see what's going on and even follow along if you have Tableau Desktop yourself. Tools we'll be using today. I know in the description I originally said Tableau 10.3, but 10.4 has since come out and I just couldn't control myself. I wanted to upgrade, so we're going to be using the latest and greatest here, Tableau Desktop 10.4, connecting to a data source that's published on Tableau Server, also on 10.4. So this data source is one that we've created. It's based on the Razor's Edge sample database. Another thing that we've done, we've also geocoded that data, and that's something that we do for all customers of ours. We take your Razor's Edge data and geocode it and build these data sources out for you. Then I'm also going to be using just this random database I found on the internet because those are always trustworthy. This one I got from this website here, simplemaps.com, a world cities database, and I'll explain why it is that I'm doing that. So originally I've been calling this webinar series that I've been doing Paintbynumbers. And I had, I guess, an epiphany this week about that is completely the wrong message that I want to send about what these webinars are about. Because Paintbynumbers, when you talk about Paintbynumbers, it's like, okay, you know, we're going to just follow the directions exactly and then color this space this color and color that space that color. And then in the end, you get, you know, this picture that's exactly like it is on the cover, right? I just used Paintbynumbers because I thought it was just a fun thing, a fun title to use. But this isn't about a specific way to do things. And so I think I just want to talk about this for a second and what your approach is when you're using Tableau and what it is that you want to get out of, you know, this webinar or anything that you're, you know, trying to learn about online. I think, you know, it's important to keep in mind that it's not about getting it right, that there's more than one way to do things. And I think when you get hung up on the idea of I have to get it right, then this leads to hesitation. And you worry that you might not know enough, that you might, you know, show data the wrong way, you're going to show it to your boss and it doesn't look beautiful and perfect. And so, you know, you don't want to do it and you feel like you don't know enough maybe to take the next step. Instead, you should have an attitude of being curious. And that's really what I want to instill in these webinars. I'm not a Tableau expert. I'm just, you know, I'm trying to figure this out. We happen to have been playing with this for a while. And so, you know, we've built some data sources. We've done some cool things, I think. But, you know, we're just dabbling and learning and playing here as well. And so I think that's important for your own approach as well, that you need to have that approach that it doesn't need to take a certain form. It doesn't have to turn out a certain way. And that as you learn new things, you're curious and dabbling and try new things, that's going to change your attitudes and your beliefs, because you're going to uncover things that you didn't know before. And so it's kind of a game, a mental toughness game, where you need to keep telling yourself that you don't need to worry about getting it right, that there's not a certain way that things have to be done, and that, you can try multiple things. And, once you realize that, then you stop going around looking for the experts out there, because only you are going to be able to figure out what it is specifically that you need. And people have different levels of experience in different areas that will help guide you. But, you want to, follow someone who knows a few things, who's confident, who has a certain skill set. But it's really as much about the process than it is information. I mean, information is cheap. It's everywhere. It's out there. What you want is someone that's going to help you with the process of, how do you get to where it is that you want to go? Okay. So dig in. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. I certainly make plenty of mistakes here, and that's how we learn. So what we're going to be looking at first today is we have a published data source on Tableau Server. That's the constituents data source. And when you have a published data source on Tableau Server, there's certain restrictions on that, and so we're going to explore that and talk about it. The way I'm going to do this today is there's going to be like multiple steps. So the first is going to be looking up a latitude and longitude. And then we're going to be doing some radial distance on that, and then doing some dashboard actions. Basically, what we're trying to do is make a constituent list that's based on a distance from a location. To say, show me all the constituents that live within 25 miles of Anaheim, California, that kind of thing. And then you can be able to download that list, and now you have that list to use, in whatever way that you want to use it. So the first step is to do a lookup of the latitude and longitude of that location, do a radial distance filter of that list, and then be able to sort of do all of this in a dashboard and show people, kind of guide them through, the users who are going to be using this, how that would work. Okay. Again, the question box is there for you guys, so if you have questions as we're going along, feel free to type in your question as we go. So I'm going to get cracking here. Okay, so this is Tableau 10.4. So I mentioned earlier that I downloaded this database. So this is the website I found, this World Cities database. On simplemaps.com, and for free they have this basic database, which is whatever, 7,300 entries, and you can download that, or you can spend more money and get the complete database that has a lot more stuff in it. Actually, as well, I'm just going to show you this. Within Tableau, there is a data source. There's another place where they have that. So if you go into Tableau, Program Files, Tableau, then the version of Tableau that you're on, then Local, and then Data, there's actually a Tableau data source in here that they have just updated that has a lot of cities in it that you can use. The problem is I was using this to try to do the same thing earlier today, and my Tableau desktop kept crashing every time I was using it. So I don't know if this is like a bug in the new version or something weird with my setup here. But this is a possible thing that you can use for doing lookups in here. You can try it and see if it crashes for you. I'm not going to do it just because I don't want it crashing on today's webinar. So instead, I'm going to go to says here, I already downloaded this. If you click on it and hit download, then it does it again. So I'm just going to load that. And there it is. So when you're working with sort of ad hoc data sources like this, you can blend data together. So once I open this up in Tableau, it's got the fields that are available in there, basically city, country, province, latitude and longitude. But then if I wanted to add more data sources, like my constituents or whatever, I could click Add and add that on. However, the one thing it won't let me add here is Tableau Server. It says you cannot add Tableau Server to a multi-connection data source. Add it as a new data source instead. And I guess Tableau's reasoning for that is that if something is published to Tableau Server, it's meant to be kind of a pristine, standalone thing that can't be further manipulated. So because one of our data sources on Tableau Server has this restriction, like we're not going to be able to blend and connect those data sources together. If you're working from an export or connecting directly to SQL Server or something like that, then you can blend them and connect them together. But in this case, we won't be able to. So I'll have one sheet here, which I'll be connecting to this CSV file that I downloaded. And then I'm going to do another sheet where I'm going to go to data and say new data source. And then on this one, I'm going to connect to Tableau Server and then the constituents data source that I have published on there. Again, this is just sample database or sample data rather from the Razor's Edge. And then, that will be available. So really it's kind of an either or thing. If you're working with Tableau Server, there's this convenience of it's all there on the server, but then the drawback is that you don't have maybe the level of flexibility. And so be sure to keep that in mind. Okay, so we're going to start over here first on the simple maps. So I can just pop back and forth between these data sources. So I'm going to call this sheet here, look up latitude, longitude. And so really this is a case of, what am I doing? I want to have a map where I can be able to just define any place on the map that I want, and then say, within a certain distance of that, show me all the constituents that are in there. So how do I look up, the latitude and longitude of a place? Well, I could do it on Google, but I want to, show you how to do this within Tableau. So here's the data that's in here. It has the latitude and longitude just built in, although Tableau didn't see this as longitude because it doesn't maybe like some of the formatting there. So we have to tell it what its geographic role is. So this one is longitude. And I know that because here on latitude, it's got this little globe next to it. So Tableau has already figured out that that is latitude. I go under geographic role, latitude. Here on longitude, though, it for some reason didn't figure that out. So we're going to have to tell it, hey, that's longitude. So what I'm going to do is basically just double click on latitude, double click on longitude, and now Tableau's figured out that this is a map. It's put us in, I don't know where. Africa, maybe. And also, if you click on the Show Me up here, then and then the dots, that's the recommended place, and it's basically all the places that are in here, all these cities. Now I can double click on these cities, and so when I do that, that adds it as the detail, and then we see, okay, here's all the cities that are in this database. So I guess you get what you pay for. We have some kind of random stuff going on here. Florence apparently is in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, as well as Toledo. Yeah, so some of these things may not be 100% accurate in this freebie database I got online. But what you want to do is just to be able to quickly look up a place, we're going to add it to the filters. So what you do is just simply drag it from the dimensions, drag that pill over here to filters, and then we're going to say, select from the list. We're actually going to say none. Oh, it's all gone now. Then we're going to say show filter, and then I have to move even my GoToWebinar collapsed thing out of the way. You might want to do the same so you can see this. So select the filter over here, and then you want to select a single value drop down. And then that way, you can basically search for a certain city. I'll search for New York. And then when I click on that, now it's filtering. So it's filtered this sample data set and is showing me, just New York. I just sort of reset my map by clicking on this X over here, then that takes it back to the default view. And then I can see, yeah, that looks like they got this one right for New York City. That looks like that would probably be the latitude and longitude for New York City. I can maybe make the size a little bit bigger, change the color, I don't know, green maybe. Give it a border. You can make it even bigger. You can also, it just automatically makes a circle, but you can also change the shape. You can make it a square, or you can click on shapes down here and then select a shape, asterisk, filled in square, just square box, whatever. For this one, we'll just stick with the default, which is the circle. Okay. So this is real basic. We're not going crazy here. We're just, looking at what data is in this sample city data set that we got from the internet. And all we're going to do from this is be able to look up latitude and longitude from any city we type in. Let's try another one. Let's try Seattle. Yep, that looks like Seattle. Okay. Any questions about this? So we will move on here to our next sheet. So our next sheet, we're going to have to connect to a different data source. We can't blend them. We're going to connect to our constituents data source. So again, this is a data source that we've published that is already geocoded. So it has, we've looked up based on their primary address in Razor's Edge, rather the preferred address. We've looked up their latitude and longitude and then put it into this data source. So we're just going to go ahead and do the same thing we did in the previous one and just show all those values on here. So here's all the constituents that are in our sample database. I'm just going to change the shape to make this one a little bit different to distinguish it from the other one. Let's do stars and maybe change the color, maybe orange. Make the size a little bigger. So the question is, how do we correlate the two? How do we correlate a specific lookup we're going to do here, say Seattle, to this constituent map? So the first thing we need to do is add a couple of parameters. A parameter is simply a user input field. It's something that your users who will be using your Tableau workbook or dashboard, they will type in something, and then Tableau will use whatever it is that they type in its calculations. So I'll make one called my latitude. Another parameter called my longitude. And we will show these. And now we're going to create a calculated field called distance from target. For this one, there is a math calculation, basically, that figures out the radial distance. So this is the math for that. And I'll go ahead and send you this after the webinar, this calculated field, so you have this. But it's basically taking the constituents latitude. So this is for each of those stars that are on here now. And then comparing it to what the parameter is in my latitude and my longitude. And it does this to calculate the radial distance. So for example here, if I were to say Seattle is 47.57 latitude, and longitude is negative 122.3. Now I go back over here to my constituent map, and I just type those in, 47.57 and 122.3. Actually, that's negative 122.3. So nothing has changed on the map here because we haven't done any filtering with this, but that's like the first step in order to get that information available that we can filter on it. So this distance from target now shows up as a calculated measure. And so I'm going to change this data type to a whole number. And right now it's continuous because measures are typically continuous, but we want to make it discrete. Then we're going to filter on that. Actually, no, let's go ahead and leave it as continuous. It might be easier to filter that way. So that way we can have a range of things that we're going to go. So we'll just leave it as a range of values. You see, as soon as I added that, some things got filtered out immediately, and those were probably like null values. Like weren't able to look up their latitude and longitude because it was really a bogus address or something like that. Now, if I show the filter over here, and then I say, okay, let's go from 1 to 100, then this filters and shows me everything within 100 miles of Seattle. This calculation is in miles. You can do another one that's kilometers. And then we can actually drag this over to the tooltip so that when we mouse over, we can see their distance from the target. I'm not sure if we need to make that 0 or not. Don't know if that matters. So these are the latitude and longitude of the constituents. So the next thing to do then is we want to build a list. Okay, like what kinds of things would we be interested in, putting in a list? We'll just do one more lookup over here. Let's do, say, Atlanta. Atlanta's 3383 and mine is 8440. So we go back to our constituent map here, and we say, okay, well, we're going to start at 33.83, and then go to negative 84.4. And I needed to remove that zoom in that I had previously because it was kind of already zoomed in on Seattle, Washington area. So now we can see, okay, here's Georgia. Here's the constituents that it's showing in the within 100 miles of Atlanta. Okay, so now we've got some basic map stuff going. We're filtering on map and radial distance. So the next thing to do is let's start to make a list, constituent list. So what kinds of things might we want in our constituent list? Well, probably the person's name. That's always a good one. We might want their address, since we're talking specifically about making a list from a map. So let's do city, and let's do state. And I can actually move this around a little, maybe do the name on the other side of those. So I can drag the pill over to the right. And so now we see that if we sort this way, now it's grouping together all of the ones that are in the same location. So all of the Atlanta, Georgias are showing up all together, you know, that kind of thing. What are some other things we might want to add in there? Maybe add, we could add their constituency. We could add the assigned solicitor. So we can put the solicitor's name. Let's actually put that down over here. If they do have a solicitor, that person is there. Then we also might want to have some other information about them, like how much money they've given us. So in order to do that, we can create a calculated field. We can say, we can call this total given. And then we use a function within Tableau called a level of detail. And you start by using the word include, and then the parameter that you're going to use. So in this case, we're doing the records ID for the constituent. And what we want to basically do is we want to say, for each constituent, I want you to total up all the gifts that they've given us ever. So what a level of detail does is this does it at this summing for each record ID, basically. We just happen to call it system record ID. But for each record ID that's in the system, each constituent, it's summing up all the gifts that they've given. So if I double click on that, and I tell it this type is a currency, then it will automatically add a dollar value there as soon as I do that. And some other things that we've also added to this data source are things like their most recent gift. And the way we do that is very similar to what I just did for the total number of gifts that they gave. So this is the most recent gift amount. This one's a little more complicated, but let me show you, hang on a second, let me go back here and show you the most recent gift date first, how we calculate that, and then the other one will make more sense. This one we're using, I guess I could have used a records ID. We answer both records ID and system records ID. It's the same thing. But here, basically, we're doing, going by the records ID, and we're calculating the max gift date. So what is the most recent gift date? The biggest value for gift date in the system. So rather than on the other one, we did sum, so we're adding it all up, but this one we're doing max. So we're finding what's the maximum gift date. So that's the most recent gift date. So I can go ahead and add that, not as a bunch of colors, but maybe just over here after the solicitor name. And then that most recent gift amount. So this one works like based on the most recent gift date. So we want to find if the most recent gift date equals the gift date, we want to get that gift amount. So of all the gift amounts that are in there, find the gift amount where the gift date of that amount matches the most recent gift date. And then we're going to get the minimum value of that. There should only be one, but they gave more than once on the same date, then this might be wrong, but this is basically how you calculate that in a level of detail. So we can add that most recent gift amount. And yeah, otherwise it's just kind of, you know, formatting these. And let's see, what else could we possibly add? Maybe the distance, since we were doing that initially. So maybe we can throw that in here. We want to convert that first, I think. Yeah, because it's a measure, it's going to want to aggregate it, and so it displays it differently than just a list of things. So I think maybe we will want to change this to discrete. Let's just try it and see what happens. If we pop this in here now as discrete, so now we're seeing those values in here. Again, we're not filtering yet. This is just all the data that's in the database. But it is still pulling from, you know, those parameters that I typed in manually, what those were. So, you know, you could build your list to be whatever it is that specifically you want to export, whatever fields that you want. You could have multiple ones for different purposes. So this is just kind of throwing some stuff out there just to show you, you know, what kinds of things you might want to do. So we'll rename this one Constituent List. Okay. Any questions about that? Anyone still there? It's a very quiet audience today. Hopefully I'm not going too fast or too slow, but yeah. All right. Let's go ahead now and make a dashboard with this. Sorry, I'm messing around with my GoToWebinar control panel. All right, let's get this down here. So to build a dashboard, what you do is, this button down at the bottom is New Worksheet, the one with the little on the far left, and then the one in the middle is New Dashboard. So in Tableau 10.4, they've added some new formatting capabilities for dashboards. I haven't spent a lot of time with it, so I'm still figuring it out. So, but what we want to do is we want to create some kind of process or interaction for our end users so that they understand, like the first thing they have to do is to look up that latitude and longitude, and then they have to decide, okay, how far from that latitude and longitude is the, do we want the radial distance to be for the constituents, and then to create that list. So this is all this magic is going to happen here in this dashboard where we're going to bring this all together. So the first thing that we're going to do is just add the latitude and longitude lookup. Then we'll add the constituent map, and we'll add the constituent list. I'm going to drag the constituent list to the bottom, just so it's kind of down here on its own, like that. And for the maps, what I want to do is I want to have, so these, it kind of put all the filters together over here, but this first filter, if I dragged it correctly, no, it didn't drag all the filters. I want to get just this filter and move that over. Because this filter is associated with the first one, and then these other filters are associated with the second map. So we'll put those on top of that one. And then maybe, this is where you get into the fun of dashboard design, and you could spend hours, days, weeks doing this kind of stuff. I'm trying to move the longitude just to be on the right of the latitude. And it's not letting me do it. Let's see here. Let's try this. See, what I'm trying to do is put these into different containers. I'm kind of being lazy here and just trying to hope that Tableau would figure it out what it is that I want to do and just do that. But it does have these objects down here that you can create. And it's already done so. Each of these is, an object in here. And then there's also the layout container. So there's like this bigger object in blue that's selected that all of these things live in. So I can tell it make a layout container. So I'm going to make a layout container here that's blank, and I can just drag these things over to it. And now when I select that layout container, I can have control over just this layout container. So I'm going to do that. That's probably the right way to do it. I'm going to add a text field in here as well. That's just going to be descriptive to my users, telling them what to do. So step 1 is going to be step 1 : select target city. And then we'll maybe center that, make it maybe 11 point, bold, orangish. Okay. So I can align things here as well, or I can just simply, collapse this down like that. So select target city, then I have city listed there. I can format this as well. I can say edit the title on the filter and call this target city. And it changes, so it'll be more clear to the users that this is the target city. Get rid of that title there. All right, so we'll make another layout container, put it next to the other one, and now I'll do the same thing here with my text. I'll say step 2, enter lat long and distance. Center that, make it bold, make it look like the other one, and I can try to align it. Didn't go inside the layout container, or maybe it did and I just moved it back out again. So select layout container. Well, didn't move. So the problem is it didn't put this one inside of that other little layout container I just made. Okay, so now I have all these things in this layout container. Now I need to move this guy into this other layout container. And then I'm going to move, oh boy, this is the fun part of the formatting. Let's see, let's see what layout container that's in. No, it's in the right layout container. All right, so I'm going to put in latitude and longitude beneath it in this little layout container that it's in. I'm trying to put it to the right, the latitude and longitude to the right. Let's just see if I've got everything in the layout container here. It does look like it's all in there. I want to move this one down so it's relatively the same size. I want to make it so that, I want to put my map in there as well, of course. Someone says hello from Atlanta. Hello. So not sure why it's not letting me do this. Probably because I picked the wrong container type. That one I made a, what if I make a horizontal or vertical container type? Let's try to move them over into that one. Go over there. Now I'll try to put latitude next to longitude. Will you work? Aha, started to do it. There we go. Yeah, so it depends on the container types that you have. So if you're going to stack things like next to each other this way, it's going to be vertical. And if you want to stack them like on top of each other that way, it's going to be horizontal, which to me is counterintuitive, but hey, whatever. So rather than spend all of your time trying to figure all of this out, we're going to just kind of do the quick and dirty approach here, which is, all right, this isn't perfect, but at least we're gonna, you know, get the major components in here and try to make it not too horrible looking, just to kind of get the idea across of a rough draft of where it is that we're going. Okay. So step one, they'll select their city. Gives the latitude and longitude. Let's at least put latitude on top of longitude, like that. Then they'll select their distance from the target. And then the last thing we need to do, which is the part that makes all of this fun stuff work, is to use this as a filter. So what that does is it says, okay, I'm selecting a filter here, which is the radial distance. So just these dots or stars that I've selected on the map. I want my constituent list down here to just reflect those. And so the first step in doing that is on the dashboard, I say use this filter. Boom, now I'm going to do that. The reason it didn't filter down here is because I have to go down to my map and tell it use this filter that's in here. Apply it to all using this data source. So that way over here, my constituent list, now it's going to grab that filter because it's applying to the same data source. And boom, now the constituent list filters, and there we have our list. So let's publish this first of all. I'm going to call it constituent list from a map. Default. It's already in use. I'm going to overwrite it. And boom, there it is. Now, this is what you're publishing now that your users, you know, your users will be doing this. So they'll be saying, okay, I'm going to pick a target city. We'll say Los Angeles. Looks like it's putting Los Angeles in the middle of the ocean, so let's not pick Los Angeles. Let's pick, let's see if I got Denver right at least. Denver. Yep, that looks like Denver. 3974. And longitude is 105.0. All right, yep. Yep, so it's filtering over here, and then we want the distance from the target, whatever. Yes, is there a way to feed latitude and longitude to the constituent map once you select a city? In this case, there isn't. I'm sure there is a way. So yes, there is a way. Why isn't there a way here? There isn't a way here because of what I said earlier about these are, this is the constituent database, data source rather, is a Tableau Server data source. So when we, back here, try to add the city lookup database, we can't add it because it says you cannot add a multi-connection data source. So the way I'm doing it here, you can't do it, but that's not to say it can't be done. The reason I was doing this was that in theory, you would have a database that has all the possible cities in it that anyone could ever want, or all the zip codes or something like that. Instead of doing that, what you could do is simply pull from the cities in your database. If you had a complete database and you're like, hey, if it's not in our database, we don't really care. You could do that. And so then the city here would be from your database, and then that would work. I just want to demonstrate this other way of doing it just to show, you know, some of the limitations. And, you know, another thing you could do is to say, you could pull, like you could build your data source with that data in it to begin with, and then when you publish it to Tableau Server, like it's all there, then that would work as well. Cool. Yes, thank you for that question. So let's see, we were doing Denver here. The other reason I wanted to do it this way is to show you the value of doing it imperfectly to start with. I think there's lessons to be learned in doing it imperfectly. That's just part of what I talked about earlier, like everyone's trying to get to the final solution at the first go through. Don't do that when you're learning. Like dabble, be curious, figure out like what's actually happening on the back end and find out different ways to do it. Yeah, is this the most ideal way to do it? No, we're making the user type in some data, you know, but we're understanding what's happening in the background. It's not just magic. Okay. So now we're seeing this, you know, when I type it in, this automatically updates, and then this updates as well. That's cool. We've made a list. But what if I want to download this list? I mean, the whole point of a list is I want to be able to download it. So I go back here to my dashboard, and is there a clear way to do it? I could say download over here, but am I pulling things from any of the other sheets as well? Possibly. So another thing I could do is when I published this, it actually published each sheet in addition to the dashboard. So this list is actually its own sheet. This hasn't been updated because I didn't republish it with the Denver stuff, but this is the sheet, you know, filtered with Atlanta still. So what I could do is just like make a link to this sheet, and then back on my dashboard, I can create an action up here, dashboard actions. So there's already a filter action. That's when I said, you know, use that one sheet as a filter. I'm going to add another action now that has to go to a URL. So we'll just call it hyperlink, and we will call it on select. So basically, whenever they click on this sheet, send them to that link. So go ahead and publish this. So step 1, select target city. Enter launch distance. There's all this stuff. And then we click on the list, and there's our list that then we can now download as a crosstab. I click on that and say download. There it is, city, state, distance, name, signed solicitor, most recent gift, blah, blah, whatever, it's all there. So the other thing we might want to do then is just maybe make one more text box that we put in here that says step 3. Click on the list below. Then select download crosstab from the menu. Okay, so here it is. Selecting our target city. We'll pick Chicago. 183. Negative 87.75. Distance from target. 0 to 50. We'll reset our map here. And there it is. It automatically updates. How do I get this? I'm just going to click on it. It didn't refresh. Maybe I have to hit refresh. Nope. Oh. Well, the link I created is not sure why it's not refreshing. So yeah, we'd have to play with that and see. But it probably just has to do with the link. I just need to change that link. There was probably some filter related thing in there that I need to take into account. But yeah, I mean, just again, some ideas that you can play with that kind of send you in this direction of being able to basically select from a radial distance on a map and then filter all of that and come up with a constituent list that your users can download. Still a work in progress, but hopefully this will get you in the right direction as far as being able to do some of that. If you guys have any questions, I know we are just running at the top of the hour here, so go ahead and ask those. And like I said, I'll be publishing this on our YouTube channel. which will be here. If you go to youtube.com/c/Concourse host, that'll take you to the YouTube channel that has all of our videos on it. You can see previous week's ones and all of that. And I'm going to go ahead and end the recording for now, but I will stick around for a few minutes and answer any questions.